Hello and welcome to I'm Alice podcast, and we're talking about connection, creativity, and how we find clarity through our ever-changing world that we live in. So we're talking about transformation and change. So welcome to this edition of I'm Alice podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Well, welcome to I'm Alice podcast. And again, I'm going to be speaking to Julia Cartwright. And I spoke in the last episode, we're talking about 10 valuable virtues for a volatile time, which is a book that she's currently working on and hopefully out this year. Who knows? And today we're going to be talking about some really important aspects and themes that we're all currently going through at the moment. And one of them is about how we discernment, how we gauge about ourselves and our interaction with others and our situation, and also the global situation that we're currently going through.
Yeah, so thanks, Alice. Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Lovely to see you again. I'm recording this today with you. You're in Bali. I'm in a very hot Portugal. It's suddenly turned very hot here. So yes, discernment is a topic that is coming up time and time again in these volatile times. And I think I said previously, we have to discern to be able to navigate wisely. So it's a bit like we're having to recalibrate our internal navigational tools. And I think, as I said previously, it's about the inversion. So rather than historically, we've been working very much, from the head. We might have used the heart, we might have used the gut, but actually our most valuable tools through times of great uncertainty is our gut and our heart. And I would say let's start with the kind of the gut, because that's where we really sense things. And it's a bit like I'm seeing a picture of somebody, a pilgrim, a stranger, arriving in a new town. They don't know anybody. They don't know the language. How anciently would they have discerned where's safe, what they could trust? And that's our gut. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when we literally work with our gut, and very often we have to start by detoxing our bodies so that we have a healthy gut. There are ways to do that through having more fermented foods, regular apple cider vinegar, so that you've got a very, very healthy gut flora. So the gut flora is like a beautiful garden. And when you've got a clean and healthy gut flora, that ability to discern is crystal clear. Yeah. So anybody wanting to really work with this level of discernment in these volatile times is going to have to go back to the body. Okay. We're going to have to clean up our bodies, get fit. And that's just not physically fit. It's internally fit. And in fact, I would say that the work is mainly internal, like cleaning out from the inside out. Yeah. So it starts with the gut. And when we're working for the gut in any situation, and I would say what we're having to do now in this navigational time, which is very different in terms of where we've been living, is that you have to have regular stop and pause. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've been able to, and I speak for myself as well, literally go through life, probably go through sort of quite quickly. We knew the rules, we knew how all the systems work. Things were in a particular ecosystem. When an ecosystem is in transition, which is what we are, it's like, this doesn't feel like where I've come from, or it's a different sort of path through the woods. You have to constantly stop and say, where am I now? What am I seeing? What am I sensing? What is my gut telling me? Yeah. It's like a bit like when you get to a crossroads, and how do you decide where you go at the crossroads? Do you go across? Do you go right? Do you go left? If you stand and pause and really meditate into it and use your gut, that will intuitively tell you, because we mustn't forget we're mammals, we're beings. We have all of this stuff within our DNA that we can access. We've just, it's been redundant or dormant. So it's a bit like we've got to wake it up again. Yeah. Okay. So I would say the other thing is to to kind of get out of the head is to really be very discerning about what you listen to. I mean, you know, of course, I would say get off the mainstream media, get off social media, anything that isn't giving you your own clarity of mind so that you know for yourself how to discern. Yeah. It's a bit like the kind of sort of, there's so much noise out there that you're also discerning, you know, what is the kind of information that you want to work with as a discernment tool. And I think through this whole process of who do I listen to? First of all, you listen to yourself.
Yeah. And it's actually what was coming to me when you were saying all this, was actually, it's really coming into the feelings. So it's really like, how do I feel about this? Which sometimes we just override and we just go and do it anyway. We're invited out or something, or we're going to do this, we'd already planned it, so we do it anyway. But really like feeling like, how do I actually feel? Because I don't know about you, but I've noticed that my feelings, I'm not so clear, or I'm really spending a lot of time on my own. So I'm getting clearer by being away from others, spending more time at home, having that peace and not having any music on, not actually, just really just with my trees and just being at home, because that's where I kind of feel my happiest. But yeah, really listening to the feelings. And I know a lot of people at the moment seem to be going through a lot of grief. They're losing people, family members, close friends. And that really impacts how we feel, because it makes us more open to be emotional. And it also has this effect of, unbalancing our emotions. And
well, the first thing I would pick up in terms of what you said about the kind of sort of the feelings, and that you're aware in terms of your own feelings, that you want to spend more time alone, and you're becoming more discerning about who you want to spend time with. I would say that that's part of your meter or your metric for your own discernment is growing, and you're developing a new level of mastery with it. Yeah. Wow. So if you say, what, actually what I'm feeling at the moment is I need to be alone, because I've got to get my own discernment compass good and well functioning. And in order for me to do that, it's an inner process. And so my need to actually be in the company of others, particularly those who are going to take energy from us, rather than supporting our own kind of sort of energy development, because we need to make sure that we do have enough energy to do this inner work.
Exactly. Okay. And that, bringing on the point of energy, that's so key, because I'm finding that I can't spend time, or I don't want to spend time with even groups of people, small groups of people that I would usually spend time with. And now I'm feeling I can only want to do one-to-one, because that is enough. Because then I can feel the energy of that person, because I'm feeling maybe too much energy. I think that's it, feeling too much energy. And it sort of keeps on knocking me off kilter, because I'm feeling too much.
Well, I suppose, this is a bit of a kind of, it's a very, very old metaphor in terms of, the chrysalis into the butterfly. If you just look at that chrysalis from the outside, it looks as if nothing's happening, okay? If you were to feel what's actually going on in terms of the whole inner process and the amount of energy that's required to transform that chrysalis into the butterfly, that's what's happening to us at the moment. So let's say that we are developing this new conscious discernment tool within us. That takes up a lot of energy, because the inner change at a cellular level, let alone in terms of what's happening with the neuronal connections, changing. We are going through we're going through an upgrade. That's the simplest word that comes to me, and that takes energy. It's like when a sort of a baby is growing in your womb. The energy that's taken from the mother for the baby to develop is huge, which is why the mother has to kind of sort of sleep a lot and eat good food. Well, we're in this process of incubation at the moment for the rebirth, and so it requires time, it requires energy, the right food, and looking after our bodies. And I think it's looking after our bodies in a very refined way. You know, the food is important, but it's not just the physical food, but it's also the energetic food or environment that we have around us, particularly, I think, for people emotional who are highly sensitive. And I think it's also a bit like we talked in the last podcast about emotions and the chakras. What I'm seeing for myself and for the people that I'm working with, it's almost like if in the past we've had chakras that have been particularly blocked, there is a kind of sort of a desire of the human being body in this shift and change to have those chakras really kind of aligned and online so that we don't have the blockages. So wherever we're kind of sort of being mindful of that, and they all represent a kind of an emotion, that's the one that's kind of sort of having the clearing. Yeah. And so that means that there's a particular emotion that might be most prevalent because we need to clear it. And where very often we'll clear that particular emotion through our interactions with others or situations.
Yeah,
you know,
reflections. So, and we all seem to be going through, well, not all of us, but I mean, you know, like some of my friends, you know, they're all going through the grief thing. So they're going through the heart loss, they're going through the pain, they're going through the suffering kind of thing. And yeah, and then obviously that makes you feel insecure. So it's going to your root chakras. You don't feel so secure about things because then you start thinking about other people that you might be losing and that probably are losing, you know, that are also ill and you know, and older, you know. So it kind of has this knock-on effect. Obviously, with the growing of what we're going through and change, then it's becoming a little bit of a bumpy ride, I think, for many of us. Yeah. So
yeah, it's seriously bumpy. So I mean, you know, I have finished the book now, and I've been able to sort of stand back and reflect on it. And of course, as it's finished, we're in a global situation where there's even more and more volatility. Yeah. And I mean, not just with the kind of, sort of the wars that we're seeing in the Middle East, you know, in Eastern Europe. I mean, those are just the two big things. But there's everything else, you know, everywhere else, the grief. So we are in a collective grief. And I think a lot of people, you know, why would they understand the grief cycle, you know? And so, of course, it's going to bring up a lot of emotions. And I think we have to be able to have the space to express those and for the space and to create spaces where their emotions are held and they're not, you know, put back down. And you mentioned this thing about sort of safety, safety. And I thought a lot about safety for myself. You know, what are my ideas of safety? And I think what we're learning is that safety, when we feel safe, it's because we feel connected.
Absolutely.
You know, whether to the earth, to our own feelings, to, you know, it can be just one or two other people or community. Because if you like, going back to what I said in my last podcast about how far we've removed ourselves from the indigenous wisdom of our elders, particularly in Western civilization, what that actually amounts to is disconnection. If you talk to anybody who's an expert, and I'm not in terms of addiction, when you kind of sort of break it back down into the roots, it's to do with disconnection. And let's face it, on a sort of, you know, a wide expanse of history, you know, people have been displaced from their land, their peoples, you know, whatever. And that's a disconnection. And that builds over time, it becomes part of a family lineage or pattern. And it feels to me, in my kind of sort of simplistic way of sort of seeing things, is that all this intergenerational disconnection is coming up now for healing so that we can go back into connection. And what is that? You know, what is true connection such that you feel safe and that you feel that you can trust?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it firstly comes like for me for myself, connecting to myself and like you say, taking those pauses to know how you're feeling and connecting to nature, because nature seems to be, you know, although landslides and all of this happens, but nature is continually growing, trees, like you said before, we can connect with trees and plants, and flowers bloom, and there's cycles there, and that we're in there, like with the seasons as well. Like 1 minute it's pouring down with rain here, next minute it's super windy. I mean, we're having this, it's like really like being like the tree and flowing with the with the branches, with the leaves, and navigating that whole sort of change of nature.
Yeah, and she's a very good teacher. So when we slow down, so in this kind of sort of just constantly slow down to pause, which is going to help our discernment. Also, nature talks to us, if we invite her. So, here in Portugal where I'm staying, I'm in a beautiful rural area. And now that the weather's better, I try to go out every day and talk to the trees, talk to the flowers, particularly now that it's springtime. And I'm constantly asking myself, what can I learn? What can I learn for myself, for my own discernment skills and mastery, which, I'm having to kind of sort of develop. And she is an amazing teacher. And I think particularly, in a storm and a tempest, we need to be very rooted. We need to be very grounded. So I use trees a lot for myself. So wherever I am, I will find a tree, talk to a tree, ask to be in the tree's kind of wisdom and presence, so that the tree can kind of sort of help me to be even more grounded, and to constantly detoxify me, whether that's kind of sort of, unhelpful emotions, whatever it is. So I will go to a tree and I will say, okay, take out of me what I no longer need. And so she takes that down into her roots and it's dissipated, and give me what I do need. It's a very simple exercise. I've been practicing it for many years now. And when I'm working with others who know that they have a blockage, and sometimes it's a very deep blockage and it's a very deep emotion that they're really afraid to let out, because they're afraid that when they let out this big thing, that it's going to destabilize them so much that they aren't going to be able to function. So a great way of working with that kind of sort of fear of that emotion coming up. And I think when people are feeling like that, to me, it's a sign that it's time to deal with that emotion.
Yeah. Long overdue, I would say. Probably long overdue. It's like it's going to burst.
It's like, okay. Then you go to the tree and you work with the tree, and the tree can hold it. Yeah. I did this recently with a client. The tree can hold it, and there was a huge amount of sobbing, weeping, and actually at the end of it, it was a purification. Okay, so we are, as much as we are in all of this volatility, the positive side of that. Okay, so here we've got the volatility. Okay, what is that actually doing for us at a positive level? It's actually helping us to purify. It's like clearing out, the old crap, the old rubbish. It's either been sitting with us in our lifetime or intergenerationally, that's come, down through our kind of DNA. And now is the time that, we've got all the support to actually clear it out, to be like empty vessels. Because when we're empty vessels, our ability to then receive the new, it's like we're very open. And so I think that with all of the kind of the conversations about we're in the grief and where we're at and the tools that we need, it's not to forget the process that we're going through. And at the moment, I'm finding that there's not enough joining up of the dots about the process that we're going through as a humanity. And it is a process of purification. And in the purification comes the balance, the healing. So I think that's really why the kind of sort of the virtues book came out of that, to actually help people in the volatility, because we do have the capacity. We do, for sure we do. So that's how I'm
and I think what I always remind myself is that, it's like life, beginning, middle, end, but then it's like rebirth, new again. We're all going through these stages of change, which, you know, something comes to an end, someone passes away, and we lose someone we love. You know, then we have to go through that process of, you know, understanding that and honoring them and finding ways, like we were talking before about creativity and how important that is for us to be creative, to use a tool where, you know, we're connecting. We could be drawing trees. I photograph trees practically every day because I love my view of the trees, and I have my trees, as I call them. I don't actually touch them because I can't, but from where I live. But but I'm with them. You know, like you say about talking to them, and I see faces and all sorts, and, you know, I do get messages. So it's like, you know, connecting to nature, but we're all in this process of, you know, beginning, middle, end, renew, beginning, middle. You know, it's like life, isn't it? It's all those constant cycles that we're having. It's just like it's always in the unknown. So we don't, you know, we think we can control everything. We think we've got it all sorted, but, you know, this control thing, we don't have any control. We just have control of, you know, being in that moment. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know exactly, you know. So we have to sort of live in that sort of in that flow of change and the
Yeah,
unknown.
and I think that's why it goes back to where we started. It's very important that we are very rooted ourselves, yeah, and also we're very clear about how we discern.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like even the past few weeks since I've finished the book, as I say, the theme that's come up in terms of my everyday life, you know, with my clients, has been discernment, you know, and I think it's helping me get a hold of how I really want to teach the book, who it's for, what the skills are, what the tools are, why they're needed now. And it is literally about being grounded. What are the things that you can do every day to be grounded? Because, you know, we are on the earth, we're working with the earth, and it's great to be able to, if you like, connect with those higher realms. But it's not to escape from being on the earth. It's about, you know, working in those other realms to bring it back down to earth. I mean, I don't like to use too many kind of sort of, you know, Christian terminologies, because this is spiritual. It's not about any particular religious teaching, but it is about, if you like, bringing kind of sort of, you know, heaven on earth. And what would that look like? Have we forgotten? Can we remember, or can we imagine? So when you talk about creativity, and it's where we started having a conversation about play. Okay, play is so important for creativity. If you've ever watched children play, the wonderful thing I like about watching kids play, or even adults play, and of course we do less as we get older, is what you're generally speaking find is they're laughing. Okay, so finding any kind of sort of situation where we can play, that we've got the vibration of laughter, and in that play we have the most amazing ability to have creative imagination. And that's where we're going. That's what we need to be doing now, to imagine this new beautiful future. Okay, because if we stay in the, what I call then the playing out all of those old wounds, all of those old emotions, yeah, we're gonna stay stuck. So in some way we've got to transition from the playing out into the play. And I guess that's the bridging period, the transition period that we're in at the moment. And that is part of the grief cycle. And, you know, not that you can necessarily put number of years on this, but I think as a collective, the grief cycle that we're in, I would say that we're already, you know, at the end of year one, and we've got another sort of, say, 3-4 years before actually there's a collective acceptance of what we've been through, where we're going to be at, and how we're really going to transition into the future. The transition is already underway, but we're still kind of sort of in the chrysalis stage. We're not yet into the butterfly, but, you know, we're moving towards that. And I think that there needs to be enough people who are talking about it in this positive way, not to be unrealistic and not to in any way mitigate the seriousness of the times that we're in, because we are in very serious times, which is why we need the level of mastery to navigate these serious times. Yeah, and that's what I'm about with, if you like, my small contribution to how I can be in this space to work with others in the transition.
So, Julia, that comes to another end of the podcast, but we're going to do some 5-minute videos, and
Yeah,
we're going to be doing it on the tools and the teachings that can support us through these volatile times that you're talking about in your book. So it's like an accompaniment, some 5-minute videos that can support us going through change. So, yeah.
absolutely. And it's all about kind of sort of simplicity, practicality. You know, nothing is complicated. So simple things that you can be doing now. And I think that quicker that people start literally having a daily practice, you know, they feel empowered that they're doing something. And hopefully it will have a sort of, you know, I'm not saying it's an immediate effect because it depends how much needs to be kind of sort of cleared or dealt with, but at least you're feeling you're doing something which is positive. And yeah,
And they're tried and tested. So
and they're tried.
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be great, Alice. We'll do
so we'll see you
shortly.
again on some 5-minute videos to support us all. So thank you for coming on the podcast, and I'll speak to you all soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, Alice. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like any further information about my work, you can contact me at travelwithalice.com.